Welcome back to another video. Today is going to be an interesting one. I'm going to quickly go into the charts of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then I'm going to talk about how the current ecosystem of inflations and stable coins are actually going to push Bitcoin much higher in the future, and why I think Bitcoin will go very high in the future. Some good things to discuss. Stay with me. Let's get started. So first of all, Bitcoin, we've seen here, we've had this critical level of support and resistance around about here $112,000, which we have bounced from 3 times here, 1 time, 2 times, and now we actually managed to bounce from it. I've mentioned in the previous video that if we go below here, I expect we could go to this level at around $107,000 per Bitcoin. Now that it looks like we might be bouncing higher, a good point to break is here at around 118,000, and if we do break higher from there, I do think that we can get new all-time highs very soon. And quickly looking at also the bull and bear market support and resistance bands, these usually show us whether we're in a bull or a bear market. And if we zoom out a bit here to the weekly, we can see that whenever we are above the line, essentially we're in a bull market. And let's go to the last cycle in 2021. We can see here's the cycle. We can see here that we've gone below the bull and bear market support lines exactly here. And this was the beginning of a prolonged bear market, which lasted over 1 year. And as long as we're above this line, like I mentioned last time, I think we are in a bull market, and currently we are still in that bull market. Now, quickly, let's look at Ethereum. Ethereum does not look as good, in my opinion, as Bitcoin does at the moment. We've broken this support line here to the bottom, and if we zoom in into the 4 hourly, I can clearly see that we're forming what looks like a major bear flag pattern. The bear flag pattern is right here, and if we break it, obviously this suggests that we have lower prices coming up. And the levels to watch here, if we look at our levels, are 1 second, the red lines that I drew here. And the red lines is the next level is here at around $3,900 for Ethereum, which I think could happen. And then obviously the lower line is about $3,400, $3,350 per Ethereum, which I do not hope to happen. But now let's talk about something much more interesting. And what basically is currently happening with the current Trump administration is that they're pushing for two things. One is lower interest rates while inflation is high, and the other one is stable coins. And I'm going to explain why I think these two will push Bitcoin higher. So let's start with the lowering of inflation. As you know, Trump has been trying to push the Federal Reserve's chairman, Jerome Powell, to drop the interest rates. And lower interest rates essentially just mean that the cost of borrowing money is less. So it's cheaper to borrow money, which usually means that there's more consumer spending. Consumers will have access to cheaper finances, to cheaper loans, and this easy access to money or cheaper access to money will promote spending. And part of that money will, of course, go into investments like Bitcoin. Another reason is that cheaper borrowing makes it, of course, cheaper for companies in the US to borrow money, to invest in local projects, to build new warehouses, and this and that will produce production in the US. Another reason is that exports will increase. So the reason this works, how it works is that if borrowing becomes cheaper in the US, of course, the US dollar will devalue as we have more dollars coming into the system. The dollar will lose its value, and this makes it cheaper for other countries with their other currencies to buy dollars, as the conversion rates they vary. As the dollar drops in value, it becomes cheaper compared to other currencies, and this means that it will be more expensive for companies in the US to buy from abroad. So they're also being pushed to produce locally in the US. And I understand why Trump is trying to push for this to promote the US and the US economy. And the other thing I want to talk about are stable coins. So we've recently had the Genius Act, and the Genius Act basically just legitimizes and puts a governing system around stable coins. And stable coins are just a coin on the crypto ecosystem, like USDT is the major stable coin, right? Or USDC. It's just a digital dollar, which is pegged to the dollar. It's one-to-one with the dollar. and it exists on the crypto ecosystem. And the Genius Act has put some clarity on stablecoins, right? And it's a first step towards making stablecoins more implemented in the system and more adopted. And the one good thing about stablecoins is that for people living in countries with high inflation, let's say someone lives in Nigeria or let's say in Turkey, there's a lot of inflation, so people might want to put their money into stablecoins now, which are pegged to the dollar. And in this way, they can preserve their earnings. Otherwise, if they keep it in, let's say, in Turkish lira, they will lose their wealth over time. This, of course, also brings more money into the crypto ecosystem, which is good for Bitcoin, because if the average Joe wants to invest in Bitcoin at the moment with the traditional dollars, they'll have to put it from the bank, upload it, and transfer the money to Binance, to crypto exchanges. There's transfer fees. It's a complicated process especially for new people. But if the money is already in stable coins, it's already in the crypto ecosystem, then it makes it a lot more accessible and a lot easier for people to invest in Bitcoin, in Ethereum, and this will push the whole crypto ecosystem to the upside. And another thing to note is that once the global money supply increases, as we have more dollars being printed, usually Bitcoin also increases. So there is a similar pattern here. When the M2 money supply increases, Bitcoin follows this. And I can show this to you guys here. If I overlay the M2 money supply, this is this pink line here, we can see, if I zoom out a bit, that usually the Bitcoin price follows the global liquidity, the global amount of dollars available in the ecosystem. And this, if it continues to increase, it's a strong indicator that Bitcoin will also continue to increase. And another thing I want to note here is the US national debt. Now, this is a website called the US Debt Clock, and it shows us the total debt in dollars that the US has. And here at the top left, we can see it's over $37.5 trillion, and it's going up every second by hundreds of thousands of dollars. And essentially, the higher the debt of the US is, the more value the dollar loses. We could say that Bitcoin increases in value because one Bitcoin is always one Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin is measured in dollars, as the dollar reduces in value, the Bitcoin will increase in value as long as one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. So essentially, what you have to do is invest in Bitcoin as a store of value instead of gold. Gold is exactly the opposite of a store of value. We can see here that it's printed like crazy every year, every day it's printed. While Bitcoin, of course, there's a limited supply. There's only 21 million Bitcoins. So if we measure it in dollars, then as we have more dollars coming into the system, as long as one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, and we have buying demand, then the Bitcoin price measured in dollars will always go higher. And that's it already, guys. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe, leave a like, it helps the channel. And I hope this explained a few things about what I think on crypto and on the traditional fiat system. And in terms of Bitcoin, as I said, I still believe that we're going to top out around, at least for this cycle, around in October, end of October of this year. And then we go into a bear market, just as we had in the last 3 cycles. And we're currently in the 4th cycle. And with that being said, thank you for watching and see you guys next time. Bye.